Hello everyone, my name is Miriam and welcome to another video. So a bit of backstory. Last week I did something quite unusual. So I sent a message to someone on LinkedIn after watching a video of his. This video was about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was about him talking about operational research at in the airline industry. So this is somebody who has led operational research across various sectors and is still leading operational research. And he actually agreed to meet with me, which was really surprising because it was just a random cold email message. So yesterday was that meeting actually, and he is an operational research leader. Like I said, he's worked in the airline industry, he's worked in a cryptocurrency company. You will be surprised what those guys are using data analytics for. And now he's working in a maritime technology company. And I have to just admit that the 1 hour we spent during the conversation was what I learned about data science careers was a lot more than I had done in months of my own personal research, to be honest. He told me a lot of internal details about the shipping industry that absolutely blew my mind away. And then he gave me a framework for how to choose which problems to solve. And he was also quite honest about what actually matters when companies are hiring. So if you've ever wondered where data science can take you to, where operational research can take you to, this video is going to be really valuable. So let's get into it. So we talked about quite a number of topics. But one of the first topic we talked about was about how to pick a sector as a data professional based on the data maturity level of that sector. So obviously, not all industries or sectors are the same thing. And he gave me quite a shocking story about how data immature the shipping sector is. Now, think about it. This is the shipping sector that controls about 90% of all global trade. This is $1 trillion industry, and they are so data immature. A majority of contracts in the shipping sector is still being done by paper, and is still being filed in some office, which is absolutely crazy given how far technology has come. A good portion of their negotiations is still via phone calls or WhatsApp or basically any of these chatting applications, even even over golf games. And so basically the shipping sector is still quite young when it comes to data, and I know it has existed for thousands of years. Now if you compare that to another sector like the airline industry that has existed for give or take 100 to 200 years, that industry is a lot more data mature and it's absolutely disrupted by different data driven companies. And if you compare that to even more data mature companies like the finance sector, or like, the companies that are basically financial, they are exceptionally mature. So why all of this matters for you as a data professional who's trying to decide on what sector to go into is that you have to keep in mind that a data immature company, it's a lot more easier for you to show your impact, for you to bring in your own thunder and do your own thing, as compared to a data mature company. Now, it's not like you wouldn't innovate or do something remarkable. It's just it wouldn't be so remarkable because they've had hundreds, even thousands of data professionals before you that have laid a lot of groundwork and have done so much more progress. But on the good side, though, you're going to be building on a really strong foundation. So that is something to really keep in mind. So obviously, they both have their value. So it sort of depends on what you want exactly. Do you want to show yourself off really early, or would you rather just build on a foundation that has already existed? So that was quite an interesting one. And then another topic we talked about was real problems in the shipping industry. And this one is going to be very interesting for anybody who is thinking of problems to solve, projects to think of, even, I don't know, startups to build in the maritime industry or in the shipping industry, because they have quite a number of interesting problems that machine learning, model building, and a ton of other mathematical concepts can solve. So some of the problems that they are dealing with in the maritime industry are things like vessel supply prediction. So people who ship cargo need to know things like, when can I ship my 1,000 tons of coal, or when do I do it? Next week or in 3 weeks' time? So they want somebody to be able to tell them when exactly is time effective for them to do whatever shipping they need to do. And on the other hand, we have the ship owners who also need to know, where should I go next to get really good prices for my vessels, or to get really good prices to move cargo. So it's sort of a supply demand market, and these people, both suppliers and demand, they want to be able to understand what exactly can they do to maximize profits. So if you're interested in any of these, it might be a good opportunity for you to check them out. Also, another really interesting problem is about route prediction. So every vessel has something they call an anti-collision system. So basically, the shipping industry has, give or take, 10 years of history showing where every vessel has been and even where every vessel is at the moment. And they want to be able to predict, if a ship is here coming from this particular port, where will it probably go to next? So if they want to be able to understand all of this from a wider perspective and be able to direct people who want to move cargo, that look, there is a ship that is available for this and it can move your cargo to this other location. So they want to be able to basically predict the movements of vessels from a wider perspective. So this is something really important. I know that there's some sort of heat map for major shipping routes, but obviously not every vessel is taking the exact same route. So you want to be able to tell where a vessel is going to before it even leaves the port at all. And then there's another really cool problem, which is about vessel suitability matching. So basically, a lot of them are really trying to find solutions along the lines of finding the right ship for cargo. Things like, would this ship fit in the right port? Is the port going to be too small or too large for it? And then there's the case of, what's the fuel efficiency? So being able to build algorithms that can match all of these multiple criteria together and provide an output would be absolutely effective for the shipping industry. Now, there's also this one is being heavily sponsored actually by legislators, and it's about fuel emissions and fuel efficiency in general. So there's a lot of heavy legislation in all of this. We're trying to save the planet. So in the maritime industry, there's a lot of scenario modeling. So if I use this vessel at this speed, how much fuel am I burning? So at what speed is efficient to make sure that I am below the target for fuel emissions, but also still making sure that I can deliver my cargo at the right time. So these are really interesting problems, some of which you would absolutely create very exciting models if you do take them on. So these are just a few problems that you should definitely go for it, honestly. It's an absolutely wide book, and it's up to you to decide how you want to go around it. But another topic that we talked about was the framework for choosing techniques. So anybody who's been in operational research or data science, basically anybody who deals with numbers on a regular basis, knows that there's multiple techniques to arrive at your destination. And there's always the concern of, what techniques should I use? Simulation, optimization, any of these other coding measures, what exactly do I use to solve a problem? So he has 3 frameworks based off of all the years of experience he's had in operational research. So he has this 3-part framework where the first part is about effort versus reward. So what the whole point of it is that if your company has to make a really major decision, say they are investing in something or they are buying something that is worth millions, even billions of dollars, expect to spend a lot of time in data analysis. But if you're dealing with a decision that is easily correctable, the impact of the decision isn't going to be heavily felt, you can use less time, and obviously less time means less precision needed. So that is the concept of the effort versus the reward idea. So the second part of it is the current skill set. So obviously you always want to be able to play to your strengths. So if you've never used a software and you have to pick between using a new software or using one you're already comfortable with, it makes more sense to use the one you're comfortable with. You deliver faster and you can definitely move on to other projects a lot more easier. So say, for example, If you've never used a simulation software, you don't spend 3 months trying to learn it if you can use another thing such as queuing theory, which obviously you already know, and you can deliver it in a week. So unless it's a really good learning opportunity, try to stick to what you already know. And then the third part of the framework is what will convince your stakeholders. So on a broad scale, stakeholders are generally split into two: technical stakeholders and non-technical stakeholders. So technical stakeholders generally want more details and more complexity. So they want you to go more into the process of why you've chosen to do it this way. Basically, they want to see that you've done your due diligence. But for non-technical stakeholders, they expect simpler explanations, probably a couple of visualizations. Honestly, they just want to be sure that you know what you're doing and you can deliver on what you've said you will deliver on. So if you're dealing with a non-technical stakeholder, excuse me, you might choose a simpler technique just because it's easier for you to explain it. And if you're dealing with a more technical stakeholder, it makes more sense for you to go as far as you need to go or as wide as you need to go. But the point here is always come with answers and not problems. So I'm going to delve into it a bit. Don't just say that, oh, I don't know, you come up with the idea as my supervisor. Instead, take a different approach. Look at the issue, come up with about 3 or more options, but generally best to leave it between 3. But come up with 3 options for how to solve it and ask your supervisor or your stakeholder to pick the one that they would rather have. Preferably if you can include durations for these options. So say the first option is going to take 3 days, second option is going to take a week, third option is going to take 2 weeks. So obviously, aside from getting a more experienced perspective from your stakeholders or from your supervisor or from your senior lead and whoever is in charge of the entire project, you also are able to manage expectations on timelines. So if they choose to go with the project that takes 2 weeks, they probably will not hound you for your project until that 2 weeks is done. So that is that about knowing what framework or what technique to use when you're dealing with problems. And then we always have to, because that's literally the point of all of this. The fourth topic that I and Andy covered was about what actually gets you hired. So we split it into two. We talked about for new graduates or for early career people, and for people who are juniors, you've had a couple of years of experience, not so much, but basically you've been in the trenches for a while. So as somebody who's also reviewed thousands of applications, some of the advice that he gave was keep in mind that your technical skills, they are sort of the baseline, all right? They are the basics, to put it in plain words. Almost everybody who's applying probably can code, probably can do some form of visualization. So it's not really a differentiator as much as some other more important things. He made mention of being proactive and curious. They always like to test. Will you pick up a problem? How do you ask questions? Are you actively learning? So if you can, show off your proactiveness and your curiosity throughout the application process. There's also the area of communication. Can you explain complex things? Can you handle disagreements in your team? And that leads to the third point about teamwork. So I know that everybody in their CV writes that they are great teammates to work with, but you want to spend more time with understanding how different strengths work in a team, even understanding your own role in a team, and knowing how to help people accomplish the goal of the team. And for juniors, people who have spent 1 to 3 years in a certain sector, you have quite enough experience. One thing that he highlighted that he looks for is, can you independently deliver a well-structured brief? So what that means is, if a problem is defined for you, can you take ownership? And to what degree can you take ownership and run with it? Obviously, with support, but how well can you do it on your own? So if you've had a few years in the industry, it might make a lot of sense that in your CV, you reflect your independence somewhere or somehow in that place, probably in your role or in your personal projects. But in general, the main core takeaway from all of this is that you want to figure out what exactly you enjoy early and then you want to be able to build the skills that make you attractive for that place you want to go to. And one final section we talked about was the struggle between picking big companies or smaller companies. But and the main point here is, with a larger company, you get more structured training. You join. They usually hire a cohort of your peers, so you have people in the same age group as you. You also get a lot of narrow, deep focus. So if you're attached to the marketing sector, you tend to delve more into marketing and into analytics in that route. If you're in revenue, you really go into revenue, if you know what I'm talking about. It's also really data mature, so there's quite a number of professionals already. So if that sells you, you should definitely be putting more applications in towards larger, more established companies. But if you're somebody who's in for something new, something fresh, you're looking for something broader, startups or smaller companies might be for you. You get less support, but you also get to train yourself, and this sort of means that you get to pick how you want to work around your own training or how long your training is going to take. There's more uncertainty, but there's also faster responsibility growth. So it's a lot more faster for you to go from junior to mid to senior and then to C-suite, which is absolutely amazing. It's a great takeaway. So there isn't really a right answer for which route you should go, but it generally depends on what you want to get out of your career. So just to round up all of this conversation actually showed me that operational research, it's not just about techniques, obviously. It's also about understanding business problems and being able to communicate solutions. So for me, my takeaway from it, I don't know what yours is going to be after I've shared all of this information with you, but my takeaway is about looking at industries a bit differently, asking questions that I've never thought to ask before. How data mature are they? Where do they make their money from? Because as a data person, you always want to know where and how companies are making their money. And lastly, what problems can you solve? So the shipping industry has the vessel supply prediction problems, the route optimization problems, contract analysis. God, if you're into NLP or any of those text analysis modeling, the shipping industry might need your help more than they are admitting. So that sort of brings us to the end of this video. In my next video, I'll probably be breaking down a concept that I learned very recently about following the money and how to figure out where any company actually makes their money from. So thank you so much for listening to this video. I wish you all the best. See you in my next video. Bye.